Good morning, everyone. Let's see. Thank you to all of our patients and caregivers that were brave enough to come up in here and share. I really appreciated hearing that. My name is Meghan Stewart. I am a clinical dietitian at Cedars-Sinai at the Samuel Oschin Cancer Center, and I'm going to be speaking with you about nutritional considerations with stomach cancer. I should share that I want to make some practical recommendations, and I will recommend some nutrition products and shakes. Any recommendations that I make are my own and not that of Cedars-Sinai. Thank you so much to Debbie's Dream Foundation for asking me to speak with you this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. So to get started, I just want to share this report that came out last year. This is from the American Institute for Cancer Research and the World Cancer Research Fund, and this goes over risk factors for stomach cancer. So within this report, there is strong evidence that high alcohol intake can contribute to stomach cancer, high alcohol intake being over 3 drinks per day. There's also strong evidence that a high sodium diet can also contribute to stomach cancer, particularly in salt-preserved foods, pickled foods, and that also goes along with H. pylori as well. And, as with most cancers, overweight and obesity can also be contributing factors. I should share also that there's limited but suggestive evidence that grilled and char-broiled meats, particularly meats that have actual grill marks, burned meats, can potentially be a risk factor for stomach cancer, and that low fruit intake is also a risk factor. And then there is some also limited but suggestive evidence that citrus fruits may reduce the risk of certain types of stomach cancer as well. So if you're interested in reading more of this report, it's available online. You can Google it and download it. So as you've heard this morning, we know that stomach cancer itself, along with treatments for stomach cancer, including surgery, radiation therapy, and chemotherapy, can greatly affect one's ability to eat and digest nutrition. We know that surgical manipulation of the gastrointestinal tract can make it very difficult to get enough to eat and also digest and absorb different nutrients. And so I do want to focus on what the goals of nutrition care are. We know that being adequately nourished gives you a better outcome from your treatment. So we want to focus on weight stability. Along with weight stability, maintaining muscle mass and physical strength is very important, as well as meeting vitamin and mineral requirements. And we're going to look at managing some nutrition-related side effects from cancer treatment as well. So how do we do this? I would suggest that everyone that has stomach cancer meet with a registered dietitian. You can ask your oncologist to refer you to one. Ideally, working with a dietitian that's affiliated with your oncology team is going to be the most helpful. That way they can have access to your medical records and get the best idea of what your individualized needs are. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition. Everyone has different food preferences, a different surgical history, different religious food practices. So it's important to be able to work one-on-one with someone that can give you tailored advice and recommendations. If for any reason there's not a dietitian associated with your cancer center, you can go online to eatright.org and click on the link to find an expert. That's the website for the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and you can find a dietitian there. So some common nutrition concerns, we've heard some of them this morning. Feeling full quickly while eating is a big issue. Not feeling hungry, managing nausea and vomiting, either from maybe eating too much at one time or as a side effect from treatment. Intolerances to different foods following surgery is really common too. We're not going to go into that in too much detail because we're on a time limitation, but having difficulty digesting and absorbing fat from the diet can be an issue. Being intolerant to sugars can also be another issue, as well as developing lactose intolerance from surgeries too. So I just want to go over some basic tips for managing difficulty eating. What I suggest to all of my stomach cancer patients is to really find their volume. How much food can you tolerate at one time before you're full? For most people, that's going to be about a cup-sized volume of food at one time. Some people can tolerate a little bit more than that, but planning around that volume is really important and being able to get enough to eat. Most people will have to eat about 6 meals a day, and what that translates to is eating every 2 to 3 hours. It's a full-time job just trying to get enough to eat. Limiting foods that are very high in fat and fiber can be helpful for managing getting full quickly or early satiety. It can be also helpful to sit upright while eating, and walking after meals may help promote digestion as well. For those battling nausea, eating foods that are cold or room temperature can be helpful. They have less of an odor and less flavor and may be better tolerated. Also for those dealing with nausea or even having some reflux issues, avoiding foods that are spicy or acidic can be helpful in managing those concerns. Most people will need to limit to less than 4 ounces of liquids while eating, so that there's space in the stomach for enough food. And also drinking fluids in between meals is really important. You don't want to fill the stomach up with something that doesn't have a lot of calories. You want to save space for food. And most people that are dealing with dumping syndrome or having some issues with dumping syndrome following surgery will need to wait about an hour after eating to drink liquids. So I just want to review some high protein foods. Protein is critical. We need protein for wound healing and for maintenance of muscle mass, as well as to keep the immune system healthy. Protein needs are increased in the presence of stomach cancer, so it is important to get enough protein. We have some of our highest protein foods are going to be red meat, as well as soybeans and fermented soy products like tofu and tempeh. Fish and seafood and poultry are also very high. And then some lower protein foods are going to be things like seeds and eggs, beans, nuts, and dairy products. And then we also have some different protein powders. So it's important to prioritize protein foods with every meal to get enough protein. Something I get asked almost every day is, what type of protein powder do you recommend? Which one should I buy? So what I do recommend is whey protein powder. It digests and absorbs really well for most people. If you can find 100% whey protein isolate, that's going to be lactose-free. So it's a good choice for most people. If you don't consume dairy products or have an aversion to consuming dairy, there are other protein powders out there. Most protein powder contains about 10 to 20 grams per scoop. I suggest getting unflavored protein powder. It's a little bit more versatile. You can add it to different foods without everything tasting sweet. This brand, pictured right here, Untitled, they make a protein powder that's actually chicken soup flavored, which is nice because most protein powders tend to be sweet, and this actually offers an alternative that's savory and can also be served warm. So that's a good company to look for. And then in terms of using protein powder, you have to add it to liquid, and using enough liquid to dissolve it's really important. You want to use caution when adding it to any hot liquids above 140 degrees. The protein powder will denature and it'll turn kind of gummy. So you want to look out for that. So in terms of getting enough calories to meet the body's demands, it can be helpful to consume high-fat foods. When you take a look at this breakdown on the left, 1 gram of fat yields 9 calories, whereas 1 gram of protein or carbohydrates only yields 4 calories. So fat can be very helpful in meeting needs. If you take a look at a tablespoon of sugar, that only gives you about 50 calories, whereas a tablespoon of olive oil will give you closer to 120 calories. So fat is very concentrated in nutrition. And we have some examples up here of high-fat foods and different dishes that they can be incorporated into. I should mention that the coconut milk up here is actually the canned coconut milk that's very high in fat and used for different curries, as opposed to the thin coconut milk that's being served as a dairy alternative. And then, for those that aren't interested in cooking or don't enjoy cooking, there's other products you can use. This is called Benecalorie. It's made from sunflower oil and milk. It's lactose-free, and this can be added to different foods that are creamy, and it blends pretty well. Each 1.5 ounce serving size gives you 300 calories and 7 grams of protein. So it is very concentrated and an easy way to add something very concentrated to your food to bulk up the calorie content. Now, a lot of my patients like to make shakes and smoothies. It can be an easy way to pack in a lot of calories and protein and something that's easy to drink. Smoothies can also be a great vessel for incorporating fruits and vegetables into the diet as well, that are blended and easy to digest. These are just basic ingredients for a smoothie. They're pretty forgiving, but at least 8 to 16 ounces of liquid is needed, a scoop of your protein powder of choice, any fruits or vegetables that you're digesting well. You may want to avoid acidic fruits, like citrus fruits, but banana would be a good choice, or blueberries. And then consider adding a tablespoon or 2 of almond butter or peanut butter, because that can really bulk up the calorie content. Also, I know that some of my patients like to add coconut oil to smoothies, because that also adds in extra calories as well. These are examples of some high-calorie, high-protein shakes that are in the marketplace. This one all the way to the left is called Boost Very High Calorie. It's only sold online, to my knowledge, but it's one of the most concentrated nutrition shakes I've ever seen. It's only a 1 cup volume, and it has 530 calories, so it's extremely concentrated. And then it's also really low in sugar. So if sugar is something you don't tolerate well, this could be a good choice. That said, it is very high in fat, and so if you have a fat intolerance, this might not be the best one for you. One of my patients introduced me to this shake in the middle, Kate's Farm Shake. This is a vegan alternative, and it's a little bit bigger. It's 11 ounces, but it yields 300 calories and 16 grams of protein, and it's all natural as well. And then on the right, we have Ensure and Live. This is similar to Ensure Plus or Boost Plus, but it has a little bit of extra protein and also has a component in it called HMB, which may be helpful for maintaining muscle mass. This one has a little bit more sugar than the other ones, but I suggest most people just try different ones and see which ones they tolerate best. So we've been talking a little bit about keeping food to about a 1 cup serving per meal. I just want to demonstrate what that would look like in terms of food. What does a 2,000 calorie diet look like when you're trying to get all of your needs in 1 cup servings? Keeping in mind that a lot of these meals could be replaced with a shake as well. And not everyone can meet their needs, through diet and eating alone. And that's okay. There are options for getting enough nutrition if you're not able to get enough to eat by mouth. There's enteral nutrition or tube feeding. For a lot of stomach cancer patients, that would mean tube feeding into the small intestine, into the jejunum. And then there's also parenteral nutrition or IV nutrition, which can be another way to get nourished if doing a tube feeding isn't appropriate for you. And then I just wanted to briefly review the dietary supplements that are essential to following a gastrectomy. I recommend 2,000 IUs of vitamin D3, 1,500 milligrams of calcium citrate. You want to use calcium citrate instead of other forms of calcium because it's better absorbed. Calcium has to be taken in 500 milligram doses. You can't absorb more than 500 milligrams at one time. Vitamin B12, either doing monthly injections or doing a sublingual vitamin B12. I also suggest doing a daily multivitamin with minerals on top of all of that. And then supplemental iron if you're iron deficient. To prevent iron deficiency as best you can through diet, try to eat foods like breakfast cereals that are fortified in iron, as well as pork, clams, oysters, and other high iron foods. Thank you.
questions. If anybody in the audience here and online has any questions, please raise your hand. We also have the mics. Anything for nutrition for Meghan? We're starting to see some over here.
I was very vaguely told by many friends to take turmeric. And I don't even know what it contains. Only thing I know is from India. And people said it's good, I think it's good. And I've been taking it that way. If you think it is recommendable, how do I take it? I put it in, I mix it with the regular juice and make it a little sweeter and take it 3 times a day, 2 teaspoonfuls. Mm-hmm. Is it really recommendable to take it?
Thank you. Turmeric is a spice from India. It contains an active component in it called curcumin, which may have anti-inflammatory effects. That said, turmeric can also interfere with some different medications and treatments, so I would suggest using caution when supplementing with turmeric, and ask your oncologist if it's okay for you to take. Supplementing with turmeric is different from eating turmeric in foods like curry that use it. So I think it's fine and safe to eat foods that contain turmeric, but I wouldn't suggest supplementing with it.
Thank you. I think we have a question here in the front.
Meghan, thank you for your presentation. I have a question. A third of my patients are Asian American, a third are Hispanic, and I would say the rest are non-Hispanic whites. One of the biggest challenges, I think, is to be, culturally specific when you give nutritional advice or discuss nutritional values. How do you tailor your consultation with your patients regarding foods that may not show up? I mean, these are some supplements, but the paper that we have from our hospital sometimes just has a whole bunch of stuff like some people don't eat cereal. It says eat cereal or oatmeal, and then there's like nothing. So is there any material out there that may help specific ethnic populations? I know they exist in Korea and China or in Brazil, but do we have any here for us?
I'm not familiar with any materials online necessarily that you could access. I think working with a dietitian or nutritionist that can create meal plans that are culture specific is important. And if you don't know, or aren't familiar with someone's cultural food preferences, ask them. You can ask questions, see what foods are going to be higher in calories. And get some information that way. But it's tricky, particularly with Asian American diets, to find high-calorie foods. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we have a question over here.
I have another question. It's rather a confession. I was told again by many friends to take apple vinegar cider.
Yeah.
From Bragg's with the egg shape in the bottom part of the bottle. It says,
I know it.
with the mother. And then when I came across the name mother, there's no mother who gives their children anything bad. That attracted me. And at that time, at that moment, I was looking at and very hard to figure out if it really is going to work. And there I met a beautiful lady from the church. She is involved in a lot of evangelical work. She was maybe taller than you were. And she was talking to me. She had more than 5 cancer patients Doctor told them they have only 5 months left and so forth. And she said they've been with us for more than 5 years already.
So maybe
And
Megan,
she told me to take take it, and vitamin D50.
Okay.
And is it again recommendable to?
No, I don't recommend taking apple cider vinegar. I think there's a lot of information out there about different dietary supplements and different foods that are presented to be a cure-all. Apple cider vinegar is one of those foods that is presented to cure diabetes and cancer and all different kinds of issues. I don't think it's going to serve you to take it. I don't think it offers a benefit to you to take vinegar. And I think it's fine to consume vinegar in foods, but to take shots of apple cider vinegar, I don't think is healthful. All right.
So continue sharing your confessionals and raising your hands. For right now, we have a question from online. This is from Kurt Key. He has a question. He said he heard the argument that eating a plant-based diet can reduce cancer growth. Is there scientific evidence out there to support this? And it is hard to convert from a meat eater to a vegan, is his concern.
I'm taking more than 2 months already, so it's serious for me.
We're going to, just a moment, we're going to take the question from our online audience. Thank you.
I'm not aware of any evidence that suggests that switching to a plant-based diet during cancer treatment has any influence on cancer growth at all. We know that consuming a plant-based diet may be protective against developing cancer in the first place, but it's not a treatment for cancer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions here? Yes, please.
Can you tell me if there is a benefit to drinking alkaline water?
I don't believe there's any benefit to drinking alkaline water. Or, there's also an alkaline diet, which a lot of people like to follow. It's very high in fruits and vegetables and low in animal products. But the evidence doesn't support that diet either.
Okay. To piggyback on that, we have a question of what the rationale is behind avoiding acidic foods.
Oh, I mentioned avoiding acidic foods as a way to manage side effects from treatment. So if someone's feeling nauseated or having heartburn or reflux, avoiding acidic foods may help manage those issues, but it's not for cancer treatment per se. It's not to affect the disease itself.
Any questions remaining in our audience? Anything that you would like to share that maybe we didn't touch on from our Q&A?
No, not at the moment, but I'll be here for the next panel.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.